Ambassador Jyri Järviaho, Ambassador Kari Hansen, Ambassador Karl-Olof Andersson, Mr. Philip Alexander Hallqvist, distinguished guests and future leaders, welcome to the 2025 Nordic+Korea Innovations Days. I understand that the four ambassadors will come after me to deliver remarks, so I feel obliged to keep my speech very brief. And first of all, let me heartily welcome you again to the KFAS Conference Hall. It is worth mentioning that the books you see around the hall are real ones, not fake. And this is late Chairman 최종현, who founded KFAS back in 1974, purchased all this to educate KFAS scholarship recipients before they were sent to abroad to graduate programs abroad. So in a way, these represent the late chairman's lasting dedication to cultivating Korea's young and talented leaders. I was told that when the embassy staff visited here to discuss co-hosting today's event, they got enchanted or fell in love with this space. So much so that all of the following sub-sessions this week, tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow will take place here. I'm also very privileged because I'm working here. I can attend the whole session tomorrow too. So it is great to be able to share this heritage with you and to take part in hosting this event together. And I believe we are waiting to hear from an exciting lineup of Nordic speakers. But as a Korean counterpart, I want to emphasize that we are also joined by the exceptional Korean speakers. All participants will be properly introduced as we proceed into the session. But let me just briefly mention one who deserves special attention. Dr. Choi is joining today as the moderator for the panel discussion. As some of you may know, he is one of the few premier Korean figures, so-called in Korean 핵인싸, or in English maybe a top insider, I don't know, and he's a really 핵인싸, known in the Nordic circles. And during the time he served as a president of KFAS, he has created several Nordic-related programs for cultivating young leaders. And these are some of the slides. One prime example is Korea Nordic Future Challenge. The Korea Nordic Future Challenge is an interdisciplinary, intercultural experience for undergraduate and graduate students in Korea and Nordic countries. Participating students get an opportunity to work collaboratively to define their own big question and develop innovative solutions to help accomplish the UN SDGs. This year, the 7 months long program will kick off in August with a face-to-face workshop in Sweden, and after a selection process between May and June. We sincerely hope for your continued interest and support for this program. Okay, the KFAS and CHE continue to closely search for ways to serve as a useful platform and expand the reach of our programs. In today's uncertain environment, it is ever more important to inspire our young generations with opportunities to meet great minds and collaborate with one another. In this regard, I hope the Nordic embassies and the two institutes can together explore collaboration going forward. I'm grateful to be hosting all of you and look forward to a lively exchange of knowledge and ideas. Without further ado, let me invite the four ambassadors to the stage, if I may, please.
Thank you so much, and warmly welcome all of you. And thank you, President Yoo-Suk Kim of Korean Foundation for Advanced Studies and Shea Institute for Advanced Studies, And also many thanks to Professor Yosung Lee of Korean University for co-hosting this week's events with us here. It's a great pleasure to be here today along with my Nordic colleagues as we celebrate the beginning of the Nordic+Korea Innovations Days 2025. Over the years, we have built strong partnerships with Korea, and our mutual engagement has been essential in shaping the collaboration we see today. The Nordic Vision 2030 is to become the most sustainable and integrated region in the world. Sustainable for us means that a strong economy can and must go hand in hand with green transition and balanced society. And integrated means to be connected as well as collaboration and cohesion. We know it's important to look beyond the Nordics to achieve our vision, to foster partnerships, to gain new perspectives, and to inspire innovative solutions. Korea is an attractive and valued partner for us. Globally recognized as a hotspot for innovation, Korea is a dynamic country with a great community of innovators in many fields. As of this year, Korea has taken a big step closer to our region by becoming member of Horizon Europe. We see the building blocks of great partnership lined up in front of us. Nordic+Korea Innovations Days 2025 is a platform to build more cooperation between the Nordic countries and Korea. A forum to present different perspectives and topics and challenges, and place to make new connections and to sow the seeds for more joint action. Today's plenary session marks a meaningful starting point for more collaboration between our countries.
The various events throughout the week center around the theme Resilient Societies. It is indeed a complex topic. So let's start with a definition that UN has crafted for resilience. Resilience is the ability of societies to prevent, resist, respond, and recover effectively when faced with a wide range of risks without compromising long-term sustainable development, peace and security, human rights, and well-being for everyone. Building resilience is highly relevant. The world has become more dangerous and more unsustainable and unpredictable. We are facing escalating geopolitical, environmental, societal, and technological challenges that threaten stability and progress. Now, we probably share a general understanding of what resilience looks like, but what are the building blocks of a resilient society? To answer this question, we have invited experts on medical innovation, national preparedness, maritime innovation, and green growth from Korea and the Nordic countries to provide us with this insight. While we share the vision of resilient societies, our contexts differ, and our approach to resilience probably has different nuances. Exactly that might be the way we bring new perspectives and inspiration to each other. It was mentioned by my colleague that Korea is a hotspot for innovation. Korea is also a country renowned for its resilience, its determination and ability to become an innovation leader in the span of just a few generations. With a popular term, this has become known as the miracle on Han River. We know for certain that Korea is not relying on miracles to stay innovative, but rather on talent, perseverance, ideas, and collaboration. And this resonates with the Nordic approach, and we look forward to continuing and strengthening collaboration between our countries.
I've never done that and tried that before. So I think I should definitely be able to do that. This to quote Pippi Longstocking, or Pippi Longstrump as we call her in Sweden, whom you may know from children's books by author Astrid Lindgren. Some will argue that Pippi is the embodiment of resilience and creativity. She does not conform with norms and standards for sure, but she manages to thrive under extraordinary circumstances with a can-do attitude to life. Children can be quite the experts in resilience and very creative. So part of Nordic+Korea Innovations Days, we also invite children and families to engage through literature and fun at the Seoul Outdoor Library. This is another great partnership, as we believe in both the value and necessity of including youth perspectives in our society's development. Over the years, Korea and the Nordic countries have built a strong and dynamic partnership, rooted in shared values such as innovation, sustainability, and a commitment to human rights, democracy, and a rules-based global order. This evolving partnership reflects not only a mutual respect for each other's strengths, but also a shared vision for a resilient and inclusive future. Together, we can push the boundaries of innovation, drawing on our shared strengths in technology, sustainability, and creative thinking. One inspiring example is the collaboration between Sweden and Korea in the field of green technology, particularly in energy innovation. The Wando Dongjeju 3 project will help the Jeju Island to become carbon-free by 2030, where KEPCO chose Hitachi Energy to provide the new link's most important part. This shows one example how we, through joint research initiatives and knowledge sharing, are helping to shape a more sustainable future together. I also look forward to the insights and ideas that will emerge this week, a full week of exchange activities, highlighting the growing importance of Nordic-Korean cooperation.
Building resilience requires more than just government actions. It demands strong collaboration across the public, private, civic, and academic sectors. Nordic+Korea Innovation Day 2025 reflects this spirit. Over the coming days, we will hear from a wide range of speakers and panelists who will share their best practices and new ideas across 5 key areas: health, quality, security, prosperity, and happiness. In the Nordic booth of the Seoul Open Library at the Seoul Plaza this weekend, you will also find books by the Danish fairy tale writer Hans Christian Andersen. He said that gratitude is the memory of the heart. And I would like to acknowledge the great effort by the many involved to make this week a reality. We are extremely grateful for your contribution. So thank you to all our speakers who will share perspectives and insights with us. Thank you to our hosts and co-organizers throughout the week. Thank you to the Che Institute for Advanced Studies for your collaboration and for providing this fantastic venue. Thank you to the Nordic Council of Ministers for your economic support, making it possible for Nordic speakers to be here with us in Korea. And last but not least, thank you to all the embassy colleagues who have been working behind the scenes for many months to make this a reality. As we embark on this week of Nordic-Korean collaboration, I would like to offer a word of encouragement. Let us use this opportunity to inspire each other and to build stronger, more resilient societies together. Now, in that spirit, if I may invite President Kim, you're already here, Professor Lee, and all today's speakers to join us up on the stage. Please come on up here. Tak. 감사합니다.
Distinguished guests, dear friends in Korea and across the Nordic region. I'm Karen Ellerman, the Secretary General of the Nordic Council of Ministers, and it is my great pleasure to join you at this important and inspiring gathering, the Nordic+Korea Innovation Days 2025. I would like to start off by thanking our Korean partners for making this collaboration possible, in particular the Che Institute for Advanced Studies and Korea Foundation for Advanced Studies. I would also like to thank the Nordic embassies for the strong and united voice you all bring to this partnership. The Nordic Council of Ministers is proud to support this excellent event taking place in Seoul. And who are we? The Nordic Council of Ministers is the formal body for cooperation between the Nordic governments. Here, the Nordic governments discuss transition agendas, produce new knowledge, and gather together key actors from across the Nordic region to try and find practical and long-term solutions to the major societal challenges we face. Together, we have set a bold but clear ambition, making the Nordic region the most sustainable and integrated region in the world by 2030. Our vision guides our work across all sectors, from green transition and competitiveness to inclusion and welfare. So it's not a slogan, it's a long-term commitment and a compass. The Nordic region is stronger when we think collectively and when we work holistically. One of our main focus areas is innovation, as the Nordic economies face structural changes and fierce global competition. Nordic cooperation is bringing companies together to speed up innovation and improving market opportunities outside the region, helping them to stay competitive on the global market. I believe the Nordics and Korea have a lot to learn from one another in this field. The Nordics is all about cooperation. It is deeply rooted in our history and our culture. It is broad and multi-layered, and it has enormous potential. We are a region united by much more than just geography. Our democratic, peaceful, and prosperous societies have been built through cooperation, mutual respect, and this inherent trust between us. We actually like to refer to this trust as our Nordic gold. The topic of Nordic+Korea Innovations Days 2025 is resilient societies. And in the next couple of days, you will look at security, health, prosperity, equality, and happiness as different but important aspects of resilience. And this resonates well with the Nordic experience. Resilience is not just about bouncing back. It's about preparing ahead. It's about building societies that are capable of adapting, enduring, and thriving. Together, we must also ensure that our societies can handle complex threats and challenges, and this requires cross-border cooperation at all levels of society. We must continue to collaborate across borders, listen to each other, learn from each other, and build systems that can withstand the tests of time. On behalf of the Nordic Council of Ministers, I thank you for your commitment to collaborate, and I wish you inspiring meetings and also fruitful discussions and insights that will benefit and strengthen our societies for the future. Thank you. 감사합니다.
Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, amazing people in the room. First of all, I want to say thank you for the invitation, very kind of you. It's my first time in South Korea, so it's a very big moment for me. And also for letting me present some of the work that I'm doing at my research center. It's going to be very broad, maybe superficial to some of you, and I'm going to do my best to stay within the time frame that I promised to do. But I would like to start with this picture, actually. This is a picture that was taken on Christmas Day, 1968, by Apollo 8. And it's called Earthrise. And it's a very important picture for many reasons. One, it shows our very unique position in the universe, right? It also illustrates a beautiful planet full of life. But it's also a planet that is utterly isolated. So this life basically boils down to a thin layer that is not more than 20 kilometers thick. And this is where we find life. But before we go into the present day and maybe also into the future, I would like to just take a quick look at our past. So humanity's journey on Earth. Because conditions has not always been good to the human species, right? In the Pleistocene, we were fighting for our survival. Conditions were really hard. We were gatherers and hunters, but then something strange happened some 12,000 years ago. Temperature increased and conditions became really, really stable. Rains were reoccurring, seasonality started to occur, and these stable conditions enabled us to go through the first Neolithic agricultural revolution. And since then, we've been on this very good path with between +1 degree and -1 degree. And this is referred to some people as the corridor of life. Because these are the only conditions that we are certain of that can hold societies as we have come to know them. Now, humans have become a major force, a driving force for planetary change. So we've gone from an amazing, personally I think these are amazing numbers. We've gone from 1 billion to 8 billion people in a little bit more than 200 years. And you think about that, it's quite insane. And we have been able to convert 50% of all available land into agricultural land, to cities and roads, etc. So just to give you some examples of the scale of human influence. As of 2020, the man-made constructed mass exceeded the dry weight of all living biomass on this planet. And this is despite the humans only constitute 10 per mil of the total global biomass. So I don't think it's very provocative when I say that humans have become a key species on this planet, a keystone species. Another way to illustrate this human expansion is through these graphs. And some of you may have seen this before. The graph to the left is referred to as the Great Acceleration. And that graph is illustrating these accelerating or hockey stick look-alike curves. So we see an increase in population density, in GDP, in water use and fertilizer consumption. That really started in the 1950s, right? So what we did, we wanted to investigate the same trends for the global ocean. And so we did, and came up with exactly the same look-alike figures. So the number of claims on the ocean is increasing rapidly. And the numbers that you see is the % increase in these claims. But we're also changing the living biosphere to support us humans. And we're doing that by simplifying and intensifying ecosystems, or the biosphere as a whole. So we're turning ecosystems into what you can call production ecosystems. And in that process, we replace natural processes, such as pollination, grazing, predation, with anthropogenic inputs. So that is nutrients, fertilizer, pesticides, etc., etc. And this has, even if this occurs at a local scale, at an aggregated global scale, we see that the biosphere has become a human biosphere that is simplified, intensified, and hyper-connected through global trade. And this has actually taken millions of people out of poverty. It's taken millions of people, increased the well-being for millions of people. So what's the problem? Well, obviously there's always a catch, right? And this is the catch, planetary boundaries. So planetary boundaries are boundaries that should not be exceeded in order for us to stay within that corridor of life that I mentioned before. And so far, we have identified 9 planetary boundaries, of which 6 have been transgressed. So the green circle in the middle, that is referred to as safe operating space. This is where humanity can thrive without any particular risk of suffering any big consequences. But as we move out towards the periphery, risk increases that we will cross critical tipping points. And just to illustrate what tipping points are, we can use examples from ecosystems, right? Because ecosystems, they possess tipping points. So at the top, coral reefs, that's my background of expertise actually, we see that many coral reefs are shifting from being dominated by corals to become dominated by algae. And there are many drivers behind this, but a key message here is that when you suffer these kind of shifts, you also lose services provided by nature, so ecosystem services. And the second point that is important is the way back, because there's reinforcing feedback mechanisms in system that provide some sort of stickiness. Once they have shifted, it can be really difficult to turn a system back, okay? So if we go back to the global level then, we see that if it's not ecosystems, but we're talking about subsystems. And they are referred to as global tipping elements. And they include, for example, the coral reefs, savanna, we have the Greenland ice sheet and the Amazon rainforest. And they also possess these critical tipping points that should not be transgressed, because these elements, they interact with each other. So if one tip, the others may follow. So all these subsystems have been working for humanity so far, and we don't want them to become enemies to humanity by not functioning, okay? So this altogether is creating what was actually addressed in the first plenary, a new perturbation landscape, a landscape that is dominated by new shock dynamics, right? And I just cherry-picked a few here. And I did that based on, from the time when my research center was funded in 2007, and you recognize most of them. But more importantly, these shocks also work in combination with creeping change that is kind of slow. So climate change, biodiversity loss, and also what was discussed here before, trust, right? So trust in institutions, in science, trust in media, and so forth. So collectively, this is creating something that I think you will hear much more about in the near future, and that is a concept called polycrisis. And a polycrisis is a condition or a phenomena where crises interact with each other, right? They tend to amplify each other in seemingly unpredictable ways. So where does this leave us then? Well, it leaves us in a world that is, I think can all agree on that, probably, in a world that is characterized by increasing turbulence, increasing uncertainty, and extreme complexity due to all these connectivities and global trade, etc. But fear not, because resilience is actually a concept and a framework that explicitly focus on these three components, right? And I think that, as has been mentioned already, resilience is now on everyone's lips, at the UN, in the EU Parliament, and in the World Bank. So I think definitions are important, and I will provide you with how I interpret it, and it was very much in line with the first plenary speaker online, actually. And that is the capacity of a system, and that system can be the human brain, it can be a forest, a city, an economy, or even the entire global biosphere. It's the capacity of that system to cope with change, right? To maintain its structure, its processes, and its feedbacks. But it's not only that. It is all about developing. If the entire world is changing, systems have to change along with these changes. So resilience is actually focusing on sustaining what we want to be, what we want to persist. We want to build, safeguard resilience. But resilience can also be very bad, because if you're in a state that is undesirable, if it's a coral-dominated reef, or whether it's a state run by a dictator, you want to erode that resilience. And finally, it's about capacity to adapt and transform, as was also mentioned previously. So, I'm standing in the way. Okay, I think that thing there is maybe covering that figure. But that figure is quite central in can you see that? Okay, good. That figure is called the adaptive cycle, and it describes the dynamics of a system, right? And what I want you to focus on here first is the blue part of that cycle, and that is referred to as the front loop. This is where a system becomes mature, right? An economy that grow and become mature, or a young forest that grows and become old. But at some point, there's a release phase. Release phase in terms of some sort of perturbation. So a system, say a forest exposed to a wildfire, or a market that collapses. Then we enter the next phase. And this is the really, I think, important phase, the green phase. It's referred to as the back loop. This is where the innovation occurs in society. This is where novelty occurs in ecosystems. Because now suddenly there's a lot of capital available, energy available, or space available. So for a new forest to grow, or new companies to come in and play a big role in society. So one could argue that we are in the green phase right now from a global geopolitical perspective, if you're an optimist, and I am. But this innovation and novelty must come from something. And the key word, I would say, is diversity. And diversity in terms of, in an ecosystem, genes, species, for instance, and in society can be different practices, strategies, assets. For nations, it can be trading partners, or it can be transportation routes, the diversity of those. So they actually enables a system, they provide the raw material for a system to change and stay in tune with its current time. But it's also about providing an opportunity to persist, because this diversity is adding to the portfolio of potential responses, right? It's like having 100 species in a system increases the likelihood that some species will survive after some perturbation and continue to deliver on a certain function. So, diversity, if there's a key message from this session, I would really like to stress that one. So diversity is important. But there are also other key principles of resilience. So one, for instance, is to manage connectivity. And connectivity is it's like a double-edged sword, right? If you have a system that is in an undesirable state, if the system is the human brain, for instance, and you have a depression, connectivity is bad because it reinforces the current state, right? But if a system is in a desirable state, connectivity is good because it provides you with, from sources, with things that will carry on that structure and function. It's also about knowing the slow variables in the system, not only the creeping change, but also the processes that operate at maybe timescales that are different from our everyday life. And feedbacks are critical in that regard. We need to know what feedbacks are dampening, what feedbacks are reinforcing systems change or lock-in of certain systems. It's about fostering complex adaptive systems thinking. It sounds really complex, but it basically means that you have to acknowledge that we don't know everything about the system. We have to live with uncertainty and find strategies to cope with that uncertainty. It's about encouraging learning. Learning basically means that you have to assess and reassess and readjust. Sometimes it may be about unlearning because conditions are so different now from what they used to be. So you need to unlearn previous truths. It's about broadening participation. It's about acknowledging that information, knowledge, and skills will be widely distributed in society. And we have to cherish that and use that in order to progress. And finally, promote polycentric governance. That basically means that there cannot be one single node at one level in society that can make all these decisions. So, to wrap this up, what I've been talking about here is to build resilience or maybe erode resilience in order to stay within that corridor of life. That's, I would say, is the key challenge for humanity today. And with that, and 1 minute left, I thank you very much for listening.
Hello, my name is Jin-Young Choi, and I'm a professor at Seoul National University teaching psychology and clinical neuroscience. I'm very honored to be invited to this Nordic Korea Innovation meeting to represent South Korea in some way and share my thoughts and our experience on the topic of resilience. There has been a couple of definitions of resilience. I'm going to share with you the conceptual framework of resilience that has been defined and studied in psychology, and further discuss how resilience has been cherished in Korea traditionally and how it has been changing in the new millennium. I'll try to conclude my talk with some directions I have learned during my term as the president of the Korean Psychological Association, when I had the opportunities to participate in the relief of social disasters from 2022 to 24. I apologize for very simple slides compared to my colleague. I really loved your slides, but it's mostly words instead of beautiful pictures. In psychology, resilience is the process and outcome of successfully adapting to difficult or challenging life experience through mental, emotional, and behavioral flexibility and adjustment to external and internal demands. This is a very long definition. It kind of became longer as time came by. APA has added, process and outcome, and also we are going into an era where we emphasize not only adjustment, but flexibility in terms of mental and emotional and behavioral domain. And resilience is a complex and multifaceted concept that has been defined. So recent research has focused, in psychology, we used to concentrate on at individual level, and people wanted to know who is more resilient than others, individual differences. So many kind of focused on the dispositional optimism and hardiness and so forth. But these days, psychologists are looking at social level and societal level. So recent review of the resilience literature in psychology and behavioral science, we are looking at societal level of resilience factors, because no matter how the person is resilient, it depends on the context and also societal environment where the person could get the resources to become resilient. And there's also an emphasis on the process more than the outcome these days. And of course, some endeavor could be successful and the person could be, recover soon. But there are delayed, sometimes the stressor comes and, the person all keeps it inside and may not express distress, but it could be delayed expression with more distress in the future. And there's sometimes like chronic distress that results in mental illness and some other outcomes. So I tried to summarize, because there are so many definitions, so many people say this is the factor to be resilient. So I tried to kind of summarize what are the concepts or building blocks that seem to work repeatedly at the three levels. And at the individual level, these days people are focusing a lot on emotion regulation through cognitive or thought change, and psychological flexibility. Of course, when you are faced with a challenge, you have to be flexible. And also this internal agency, people say it's kind of sense of coherence of who you are. And also there's a lot of literature on self-efficacy. You do what you have to do very studiously. In Korea, we call it 모범생. It's like a good student kind of attitude that works repeatedly, but it has to be, it's sort of nuanced. And also purpose in life and meaning in life works. But this is associated with other factors, so it cannot really be individual character per se. And usually in the past, dispositional resilience has been very popular. Some people are very resilient, like Pippi Longstocking. But studies have shown that those individual characters do exist, but it doesn't show the consistent effect, because there's so many other factors that go into resilient adaptation. But I love Pippi Longstocking, by the way. And socially, perceived social support. So it's a simple question UN and every other study asks is, do you have someone to go to when you are in trouble? That's a very simple question. But that's, so if you, it's not a matter of the person has it, but if the person doesn't perceive it, it doesn't have a social support that one perceives. And also, I think my colleague named Dr. Nyström, yeah, mentioned connectivity, connection is double-edged. So when you have a terrible relationship, it's not good to stay. But usually having qualitatively good relationship, it's very, very good. And socioeconomic status, is repeatedly shown to be helpful, but this is correlated with so many else things. So you cannot really intervene with socioeconomic status. This also ties into individual income. If you don't have the minimum income, it's very hard to be resilient, people find. But it's not only the amount, but the stability. So a very affluent person who does very risky financial exchange could also be under stress and would chew up the resilient resources. I think this meeting, people are more interested in societal, maybe, as a country or a system. And we found that the studies have found that perceived collective efficacy is very important, as well as community attachment. It turns out that disasters in rural area tends to be more, people tend to be more resilient in overcoming the adversities. So why resilience? I'm going to skip this because my colleagues has really beautifully shown what's going on in the world and why we are right now in an era of change, disruption, and also innovation. One question that I wanted to bring today is Korean people viewed oneself as very resilient country and race. We can say race in Korea, but I know this is internationally a taboo. But we kind of think ourselves as a unitary race, which is really not true. But that's how we kind of like try to gather our social cohesion sometimes. So the left picture is the people. This is people's citizens gold collecting movement. This is kind of strange. All Koreans know it. Probably people from Nordic area didn't hear about it, but you probably know the financial crisis that hit Korea in 1997, and people have been view the 1997 so-called IMF financial crisis as the biggest national disaster after the Korean War, because Korean, Asia in general, starting with Japan, it was going through depression. We were not prepared, and the financial resources, especially foreign currency, was not available for many exporting companies, especially the big ones called 재벌, And so when that happened, everyday citizens in Seoul started to collect gold, donated, so that companies or the country, not having the currency, could buy dollars with these gold, and it was $20 billion were collected. I was surprised too. So, and there was 10 years later, a biggest oil spill in Taean Peninsula on the west coast of Korea, and 1.2 million volunteers came from all over the country and swiped the oil with hand cloths, which is amazing. And and there was recently a deadly Jeju air crash in Busan airport, and families of victims were supported by over 5,000 volunteers. These examples are very, very model case of resilient community and national endeavor to overcome difficulties. And where does this come from? So these are pictures. Can I? So this is a picture from the Korean rural area in 1971 It's a typical family picture with 3 generations and also, you know, these chickens in rural area. So this was taken by photographer Ju Myung-deok, and he also have this picture of family walking. This is a young family, and the can you see the woman with the child? She's the wife. So this is a young family, and so he is a student. We can see, but this is kind of interesting picture of the whole family, kind of like, even though he's married, he can be a student. The whole family is rooting for his higher education, not only his parents, his wife, and she has the basket, shopping basket, and the kid, and he doesn't have to worry about anything except studying. So this is kind of, it's a beautiful picture. It's in Yangpyeong, Gapyeong, but it kind of tells a story that I found when I was doing research in cognitive aging of Korean people. Also, this is a very famous Korean film that kind of tells the story of a North Korean immigrant, refugee, basically, coming to Korea and surviving, and the family support that these people have, and also the conflict, and but also, the point is they are strong because the family is together. So, at about a little bit over a decade after the new millennium started, we had this really disastrous Seoul cruise accident, killing almost 300 high school students. Intense dispute over the role of government, and also the fact of how could this happen, because the students were told to sit and wait instead of letting them to evacuate. In English, sink or, let's go back. In English, sink or swim means 각자 도생 in Korean. So you only can save yourself, was the message. What was interesting about this incident was because sink or swim is kind of like a very harsh survival, message. And right before, I was in New Jersey when I encountered this accident. And before I was on a sabbatical at Columbia, people were talking about sink or swim, 각자 도생, a lot in that period. And for some reason, there was divisiveness about the facts about who did wrong, who was responsible for this tragic accident, and how should we grieve or do the memorial ceremony later. And so those things were very divisive, and it's still not settled yet after so many years, almost 10 years. And there was recently a Halloween crowd crush, and this had fatality 154 over the night. And this also had dispute over the role of government in safety and rescue efforts. But recently we had another nationwide social disaster, but it wasn't so dramatic. It's about rent fraud, but it spread throughout the country. So at this point, we have more than 27,000 victims developed severe depression, anxiety, and suicidal thoughts, but only 8 died. And I want to kind of talk about this example later more in detail and what we did over the years. So Koreans have been thought to be resourceful and resilient and able to solve problems. But one problem we have not been able to solve is the suicide crisis that has been happening from 2003. So you can see that at 2003, in 2003, we became this is 2015, and this is 1995. So between the 20 years, Koreans were the mostly only OECD member countries that had increase in suicide rates. And that was huge increase. Let's go a little bit faster. So another problem that we have not been able to solve is the low birth rate, which hit below 1 per woman in 2018. That was another trend that we are trying to tackle. And this is tied into the rapid population aging. And as you can see in this right side slide, the slope is steepest in South Korea. But maybe China is catching up these days. And when I began to join the leadership at Korean Psychological Association, I came across and I had access to more data on suicide and mental health of Koreans, and found that that was not really published in newspapers, is that the increase in suicide was really heavily hit in the older. This bracket, 40, 50, people said that it was due to the financial crisis of 1997 and also the credit card crisis in 2003. But people didn't really talk about the elderly people, which really hit high. And you can see that it's it's over 100 people in 10,000 population. So this is the change of suicide. Now it's like 26, but we are still going into still not being able to really find the stable outlet at this point. Why is this happening? So one of the reasons is that Korean economy is slowing down. As my colleague has said, when you grow and mature, then you slow down. But people were not expecting slowdowns. So we thought that we could grow till the end, but people were, as the economy slowed, there was more tension within the society. Who's going to okay, so I need to really speed up. So I'm going to, let's see. So at this point, we ask ourselves, are we resilient? And one thing that I wanted to show you is this OECD graph of social support. And not all Koreans are without social support, but Korean elderly people are the most, is the least, has the least social support, which is like 66%, especially among the uneducated elderly people. So that is happening. And what are the reasons? We have to look at the value system, because this ties into purpose in life and meaning and how people make decisions, because people make decisions according to their value system. And the social survey found that Koreans is right here. We're with the Confucian countries who made great strides in economic success, but we are up here with a secular value. So it's about economic success, materialism, and effectiveness. But we didn't really go into the advanced economy value system which values self-expression and diversity. And this is another, graph that tells us Korea is very healthy and the income is good, but we lack generosity, and also, corruption is, a little bit there. But the most striking thing was the generosity or inclusion or tolerance. So I already said this because we were so successful in terms of economic growth. We have to let go of this maybe unlearning, but it's hard. It's hard to let go. And that's why we have been, every year we've been saying to our people that Korean people are not happy, but our GDP is still rising, slowly, but rising still. And so at this point, we feel that Korean people may not be resilient. And which area is that? I've been telling people the social support and relation quality, and also the collective effective efficacy has come down. It has, the social fabric, some people say, has disintegrated. And, but there is some hope. I would like to end with some hopeful message. So from the sink or swim message, this is my first intervention effort from the KPA. So as soon as the suicide crush was announced, our KPA gave our the hotlines, and we were able to support family and counselor with a lot of psychological services, including individual psychotherapy. And this book was published, Am I a Survivor of a Disaster? She's a young writer, and she was at the scene, but she survived. So she was really, really guilt-ridden, depressed, angry, and everything. And she kept a blog, which became very famous, and it was turned into a book. I brought 3 books. If you want some of them, I can give it to some people. But what she wrote was beautiful because she told everybody how she survived. It's a report on how she survived her trauma, and because she's a writer, she's very articulate how she did it. She came to our just one time counseling several times, and later on when people didn't really wasn't up to everyday life, young generation, this was the first time in our organization history they called, like as if we were emergency room, and then asked us to do this and that, and they want individual therapy. So we got individual therapy money from SK, so we had some support from SK company, and we were able to give individual psychological therapy to these people, and it was very successful. So we were invited to the National Assembly and tell them what we have done and the outcome. And when there was this rent fraud, the ministry called us within a week and asked us to go and help these people. And that's how we were able to prevent a lot of death due to suicide, because acute stress is a high risk factor in suicidal thoughts. So I wanted to say that if we relearn the individual level of resilience factors such as emotional regulation, psychological flexibility, these things you can learn through evidence-based psychotherapy. And also psychotherapy could give social support. although it's not permanent. And also the message was clear that the national government, Korean government, introduced the National Psychological Counseling Service last year, thank God, in July. And we are seeing the suicide rate, it has been calming down, even though it was going up a year before. It's calming down after September. So we think this is one way we can reinforce the resilience of Korean in a post modern era for Koreans. This is new. And these are some of the things that I think would be helpful for individuals, social, and as my colleague said, diversity is very important. Because when you're stuck in one way of survival, you have no way out. But if you know there's diverse way of survival and living a meaningful life, then people do not, people have hope. So that's my message, and thank you very much. And sorry for the being late.
Hello, everyone. I think it is clear now that we are part of something bigger, and today is also part of something bigger. It's part of a full week of a program for the Nordic+Korea Innovations Days, and I have the pleasure to inform a little bit. I wouldn't call it marketing, but there's still opportunity to participate in other events this week, so I will go through the program for you. It was mentioned that we had been doing Nordic talks in the very opening. So just to start with the beginning, this is not the first time. Nordic+Korea Innovation Days is actually part or has grown out of a series of Nordic+Korea talks. And as you can see on this slide, there has been many interesting topics, anything from AI and democracy to COVID-19, I don't know if anyone remembers that anymore, to future food. So we stand, on the shoulders of a long, good tradition of interesting and relevant talks, because that is exactly the point. It's topics that have relevance for all of us. That's why we like to discuss it together. So it's just to give you a background that this is not the first time. And then coming to the program of Nordic+Korea Innovation Days, it's a new name, very difficult. Here is actually the list of what's going to happen. We are on day 1, so we thought it would be good to just present a little bit more of the context. And also we have heard today very broad concepts of resilience. So we have also allowed ourselves to make some connections under this headline of resilient societies. So with this plenary today, where we are giving very, very solid and interesting foundations, that we will leap into some more in-depth sessions on health, security, equality and prosperity, and finally happiness in the weekend. So let me give you a few more details on each, since this doesn't look like a lot, but it is. It's a lot of calories in this program. Tomorrow morning at the same place, we will start off with a session on health. And, I needed to write it down. So we'll have 3 keynotes around the medtech innovation, digital solutions in chronic disease, and patient-centric care. And actually today you will have a little bit more of a teaser from Ms. Boisen, who will also be participating in the health event. Right after health, you can participate in security session, which will also take place here. Here we have 4 keynote areas spanning from national preparedness, national resilience frameworks, innovation in public protection, and enhancing safety. And today we also will have a small taste of that from Ms. Parker a bit later. Then you can sleep and come back Thursday, where we will address equality with specific focus on maritime sector that has one of these traditional masculine sectors, so that makes sense. And here there will be 2 keynotes with the panels, with focus on equality, and we will hear some real experiences. And today we have Ms. Burton, who will give a small introduction to what that is about. And not least also prosperity. Here, right after equality, there is a session on prosperity with 3 keynotes on energy sharing, cutting edge energy innovation, and power systems. And we have Mr. Hassan Poor, who will give a small introduction to that in a little bit. Last but definitely not least, we have been talking also about happiness. I've also seen it in the former presentation as an important dimension of resilience. And it's not to say, don't worry, be happy, but rather that being able to enjoy is very important. And as our ambassador said, children can be a very good inspiration for that. So we thought they were actually the best ambassadors for happiness. So on Saturday and Sunday afternoon, 4 to 10, we will have a pavilion with both books and also some activities and opportunities to be happy and to enter into dialogue with the youngest generation on this. So what is the aspiration of this week is that this is new, but it's not new. We've made some changes. We're really here to learn, and we stand up here, but this is really a week where we would like to engage and also take good ideas and hopefully meet many of you who have participated either before or first time this year. So this is a chance to also put some faces on all of us who would like to engage with you. This is the program. There were some QR codes on some of the slides. If you have any doubts, also come and hear the details afterwards. That's it. Thank you very much.
The Nordics, a place to belong and to thrive. We're different, but also alike. Above all, we are united on a common journey to be the most sustainable and integrated region in the world by 2030. We do this by helping to generate new business in the public and private sectors, while safeguarding our innovative power and the region's competitiveness. Our Nordic leadership is based on openness, integrity, and the ability to combine economic growth with stable democracies. Together, we stand stronger for a better tomorrow.
Welcome to the panel discussion sessions. Before we begin, I'd like to express my deep, heartfelt congratulations to Ambassador from Nordic and delegates, and also President Kim for his very generous, kind, welcoming remark to me. It's kind of homecoming to me because up until sometime last year, I was often finding my place in this podium to speak jam-packed audience to talk about sustainability and resilience, something like that. So welcome to final sessions. Well, before we begin, let me share with people in this floor what resilience means to Korean people, so by sharing my experience. I think up until the moment of Corona pandemic, resilience is something in the mindset of my colleague from Stockholm and all these experts. But for the first time, I think in our life, resilience, it had, genies out of bottle, because all of a sudden we realize something like a mask we need to wear to deal with all this pandemic is all of a sudden such a rare commodity because some country across ocean, they're controlling export. It is very, pretty small item, but it doesn't matter. So that was really important lesson. Even if you have high tech, but somehow you don't control fine assembly, society may not be resilient. So all of a sudden we realize such a dark contrast between efficiency driven by cost minimization versus resilience. So resilience was understood by many Korean businessmen, global businessmen, how you regain control of your system. And the second experience was, last winter. All of a sudden, unexpected, clock rewinding, political action of calling for emergency martial law, and then ensuing political chaos and clash and confusions, and this lively broadcast around the globe. So country of K-pop and K-culture all of a sudden turn into K-politics. And I happen to have office in epicenter of all this political clash in Gangbuk, nearby Constitutional Court. So when I was working from my office to go to lunch place, I was seeing two different camps. One group of people shouting for resignation, and another people shouting, well, he should be maintained. But remarkably, there was no clash. They're separated by 100 meters. So is this sign of Korean society is resilient? So all, the global media was busy telling what Korean democracy is strong and resilient. But I have doubt, because as Professor Chair emphatically emphasized, somehow we, country somehow known as create all this miracle and condense economic growth, all of a sudden we are finding ourselves impossible to cure, impossible may be too strong word, very difficult to cure our slowly creeping ailment in our society. So my gut feeling is someone who spent my lifetime in education, young generation, and then we are finding Korean society 1 + 1 is less than 2. Maybe one doesn't want to mingle with another one. I think that is challenging. So with that perspective, I'd like to learn from our distinguished guests from Nordic regions, starting with Anja, and then Vera, and Aman, and Jacqueline, and finally Mr. Chun-Sup Lee. So each will take 10 minutes, and then you will share resilience from your field of expertise. Go ahead.
Thank you very much for the introduction, and thanks a lot to your excellences and to the organizers of today. I've really enjoyed the session so far. So I've prepared a short presentation on my experiences with innovation, and I've just learned that maybe I've been building in a bit of resilience, as you'll see, even though it's not been a very conscious choice for me. And then tomorrow I'll share more on the science part of what we do within the medical space. So I'm from DTU, the Danish Technical University, and why do we work with health technology? So what I'm doing is very much related to an aging population, as you also have here, finding new solutions. In Denmark, we are also having the same, maybe not as much as here. We are lacking healthcare givers. We we might be preparing for a new pandemic that might come at some point. And we also have around our expenses for healthcare, 80% is spent on chronic diseases. So we need new technologies to be in this game. So we really are in the space of preventing and diagnosing and treating diseases. So our vision is really to pioneer minimally invasive and sustainable medical devices to prevent and diagnose and treat. So if you just look at my research center, we're around 55 people. So what did we do the past 10 years and how did we actually get started? So this is us, first, before I introduce what we do. We're around 55 people today. We're from 25 different nationalities, and we're ranging basically as many different scientific disciplines, from computer science to pharmaceutical sciences. And I think that builds some strengths and resilience. So our motto is bringing science to life, and I think it both covers that we work with science technology, but also that we really like to translate what we do into real applications and to make this translation. So for me, it started 10 years ago, more or less now. I was so fortunate to get 2 major grants at the same time. That doesn't happen very often, and it was a coincidence. So it was one grant from a private foundation, the Vidum Foundation, to continue what we've been doing for many years in nanosensors. And honestly, a lot of the work we didn't really have any real applications. It was more kind of fundamental science. And then I got a new grant from the Danish National Research Foundation to do something completely new and crazy, microdevices for oral drug delivery. And I was called to the office of the foundation and said, you can't do this. You can't coordinate 2 large projects, but you can combine them because then you just have one project. And I thought, okay, that's cool. And it actually ended up being a very happy marriage because suddenly we were collaborating in one project with people coming from the pharmaceutical and medical space. And suddenly we could see there was a lot of use also for the sensors that we had been developing. And since then, we've been growing thanks to some European grants and also private grants. And I can just say that the Novo Nordisk Foundation a few years ago gave us a grant to harvest energy within the body, for example, using how our gut is moving. So we don't need to swallow a battery. And in the future, hopefully, we can swallow a doctor that can do anything inside that you would like to do, like surgery, drug delivery, sampling. So that's kind of a crazy vision. So these are some of the numbers for the past 10 years. You can see we've been filing a lot of notification of inventions, starting several companies. We also are proud of doing good science, but I think good science and translating into companies, they go hand in hand. One is not excluding the other. And here are some of the logos of the companies that we've been spinning out during the last 10 years. 3 of them are still in the making. So how do we do this in a more structured way? So I'm trying to make this house for you. So we start with having kind of a future vision of generating devices. And we can't just, take our devices directly to the patient or to the hospital. We need to have some transition phase. And this is where we really, go through startup companies that we establish ourselves, or we translate the technology to a startup company. We go through established companies, or we go through academia. And I think one of the most important things is, of course, the science we do, but really, really important is the way we grow our scientists, because these are the ones that are moving into the companies that we're starting. They are the ones that go into the bigger companies. They carry a certain culture with them. They go into academia, other places. They start their own research groups, and they still carry this culture with them. So I think this is a really important part, is to focus on the scientists and how they grow. So I will now, in my next slide, show you a few keywords on some of the things we do, also in how we try to grow scientists for the future. And then down here, we are highly supported by the infrastructure at our university. We have fantastic lab facilities, animal facilities. We also have this new technical university hospital in the Copenhagen region, where we can directly connect to the medical doctors in there, and we have a data transfer agreement, so it's very easy to collaborate now. And we also have something called DTU Skylab. So this is an innovation hub where we can kind of get support for our young startups, both financially and also just support on how you do these things. And then I think basically everything is founded in the values that we have within our research section. So how do we want to grow better scientists? I'll just show you a few examples of what we try to do. So one thing is actually coming back to diversity. I really believe that diverse research groups is the future, both when it comes to our different cultural backgrounds and also our different scientific backgrounds, because it simply gives us, as you also said, more opportunities and more legs to kind of stand on. And in order to make this work, because this is not easy, I daily have small conflicts coming up because we are so different and we're misunderstanding each other all the time. So being trained in, cultural intelligence is something that we've been going through. Also, talking about our preferences, you can do these insight tests. Many things you can do just to understand each other better. And why is he doing like this, So we have had so much confusion, and I think just talking about it really improves the work environment. And it's something you will carry on with you for the rest of your life when you have had these experiences. We also teach a lot to younger generations, both in innovation and in the core science. And it also kind of seeds new interest and getting new people in. And also the people who are teaching also learns a lot just from how we actually communicate our science. And then I think this about being adaptable and having a flexible work environment. This is just a funny photo showing some of the things we do, but I think it's really important that you are ready to adopt also in science. You know, grants can suddenly stop, new directions are showing up. So I think you can be very focused on what you would like to achieve, but how we're going to do it, that can be changing quite a lot. And I think that's one of the things we're good at in research, is being creative and rethinking how we're doing things. In terms of doing better science, I think it's there, but of course there are very different ways of doing it. I enjoy combining different scientific disciplines, and it makes it easy if we're co-located and that we have a trustful relationship where it's actually okay to combine different scientific disciplines into new solutions. And that takes a lot of effort, and you cannot just relax. All the time you need to build on these trust-building relationships. And then, of course, a team. You need a strong team to carry this out. And again, I really enjoy that it's a diverse, multidisciplinary team, bringing in competences from many different universities and companies, because then we're again stronger, and we have, you know, more opportunities to build up for the future. Just a few examples of what we're working on, and I'll show a few examples tomorrow in the healthcare session. But it's really about preventing, diagnosing, and treating diseases, and working with more sustainable solutions for the future. So in terms of creating better businesses, because it's part of what we do, and I think it started by one company, and then the students could see that, okay, if they can create a company, I can also create a company, and then that's how it started. What we also do is that we have a pitch board that comes in once per year, and they look at some of the projects that we're doing. So this is in front, the orange lady, that's our Vice Dean from University of Copenhagen, Trine Winter. She's in our pitch panel. Then in the center, it's Ulrik Lydt-Rahbek from Novo Nordisk. And then there's Tom Olesen, a serial entrepreneur in Denmark. And they review these small pitches from the students, and they score them, and they find a winner. And it's just for fun, but it's also a really nice way of practicing, you know, if you really want to pitch one day. We also host industry days where we invite people in from industry and foundations to actually see what we are doing. And we try to really invite people high up in the companies to get the most important feedback. And it's just to test if what we're doing is actually making any sense. And we get a lot of suggestions, and we're not always listening to their suggestions, because that, you know, it's just suggestions, but it's really nice to test if what we're doing is making sense. And then we use our alumni, so people who were formerly in our group. Some of them are in very high positions today. Some of them have failed several startups. But all this experience we can then bring in, and they are very happy to support some of the new startups. So it's a very strong element of what we are doing. We also, of course, collaborate with some of the bigger companies in the region. That's another way to translate our discoveries. So that was all. And just time is up. Thank you a lot for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you, Anja. Nice start. So next panelist, Vera Parko from Finland. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me, and it has been a very interesting session so far. And I'm trying not to bore you too much with government-issued slides. No death by PowerPoint, I hope. But I hope to give you some perspectives of our Finnish national experiences with national preparedness and resilience. First of all, something about the Finnish concept of comprehensive security. This model has many names. Our neighboring Sweden calls it total defense, but we call it comprehensive security. Before I tell you more about this, I think it's good to remind you a little bit that Finland has a long history of geopolitically being between our neighboring countries, especially the one in the east. Russia has been an empire we have a long history and a very long border with Russia. The border is 1,300 kilometers, 800 miles long. Now it's also a NATO border and an European Union border. So And you have to remember also that in the Second World War, Finland was attacked by Russia, a much bigger military power. So maybe you can understand why there has been a need to prepare ourselves. Our other neighboring country, Sweden, has been much more friendlier. So no problems with Sweden whatsoever. We call the approach to resilience a whole of society approach in Finland. By this we mean that everybody and every sector of society has a role to play in promoting resilience and promoting security. It's not only security professionals that are in charge of upholding a resilient society, it is everybody. And it is built in cooperation. I think cooperation and trust were the catchwords this morning, and I believe this is at the heart of the comprehensive security model that works in Finland. Authorities, businesses, NGOs, academia, cultural institutions, communities at the local level as well, and citizens have a role to play. And how it works as we plan together, we exercise together, train together at all levels. And we don't have a special system for security in crises, for crises. It is built in normal times, in peacetime. That's the whole idea. And this we call the diamond, the so-called diamond of comprehensive security. Our Finnish strategy for security of society was just updated in January this year. And here you can see the 7 essential functions of society, they're called, that we have to uphold and maintain in all circumstances, from normal accidents to even the most serious scenarios, crisis scenarios, even military conflict. And when we updated this, the so-called diamond this year in the security strategy for society, another very important layer was actually added. It was the citizens, it was the individuals. So you can see that the people inside the so-called diamond, that's something new. And I would really like to maybe go into more detail tomorrow about this. But this is something that I think in today's world and all today's crises, we really have to focus on the ability of individual citizens to uphold and also anticipate and also recover from crises. So agency and trust, as we said earlier. And I think this is I don't know if you can see this. It's a very complex picture, but again, some complexities on the risks. In Finland, we do a national risk assessment every 3 years. Maybe here I would just like to point out that I think anticipation is very important in defining resilience. We have to be able to use foresight and risk assessment tools to really anticipate the risks we might face. This is the only way to be able to respond to this. There are some risks, of course, that we know that are very likely, but for example, the COVID pandemic, many people said when it happened that this is a black swan. This is something that we haven't anticipated. For us security or risk professionals, I think it was very clear that something like that was going to happen, and it was in all national risk assessments. But still, many societies and countries seem to be caught by surprise. And maybe for the next risk, I'm in a very depressing field. We talk about what could go wrong all the time, and are kind of excited about it. But I think it's just very, very important to acknowledge that we have to think about what could go wrong, and what we might do in that, even the worst case scenarios. And you kind of have to be able to talk about also the most serious threats. I'm just going to advertise, for example, the Finnish Finnish innovation and expertise on civil defense systems here. These civil defense systems are built for basically military conflict scenarios. It's a horrible thing to talk about, but we use the civil defense shelters. I don't know how it is in Korea, but here, but in Finland we use them as in normal times as sports venues, as swimming pools, and then they can be converted into civil defense shelters, protecting the civilian population from the effects, basically the effects of war, when there's a crisis situation. But it's all built in for everyday use, and that's how they can also be maintained. So it's not a separate system that we kind of use when the crisis is already there. You have to maintain it in everyday life. My last point, the involvement of individuals, and also, I think, communicating to the public. It's a fine balance when you, as an authority, you try to tell people that there are risks they have to be prepared for, even serious risks they have to be prepared for, and what their role is. Because you don't want people to be too scared, but at the same time, you should be aware about what your role is if something would go wrong. In Finland, we've used a 72-hour concept. It means that every household should have 72 hours worth of home preparedness stuff. For example, water, food, flashlight, a radio with a battery. I'm sure everyone here has it, I'm sure. But if you think about urban people living in urban areas, this is not something that that comes naturally to people, to all people. I think this is a good example of how to tell people to be prepared. Because if people are prepared and the individual citizen is prepared, then authorities don't have to come and help you. They can come help you after 72 hours. So you can cope for 3 days with what you have at home. I will go more into detail tomorrow, but this last picture shows you that prepared people cope better. If there's rain, if you're prepared with an umbrella, you don't get wet. In Finland, we hope this is something that our people have a preparedness mindset. And I think there are opportunities for best practices and information sharing and cooperation with other countries. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. From your talk, you mentioned your job is constantly try to figure out what can go wrong, right? So you should be in mindset of Putin's.
Yes, I was just telling somebody that my favorite TV show on HBO is Chernobyl, about the nuclear disaster. I think that's a great show.
Thank you. Now I will ask Dr. Aman Hassanpour from your experience.
Yes, so hello everyone. First of all, thanks a lot for this invitation and this beautiful event. Thanks a lot to all of the people who made this happen. Let me start with answering your question, like how our company and the things that we are doing is related to the resilience, and specifically on the society resilience. I think almost all of the measurements and the points that the other speakers highlighted has one condition, that's the electricity and energy is there. So just imagine there is no electricity here. So it's gonna be a real chaos everywhere. So we are working in energy sector, and we try to reinforce the grid, the power grid, the electrical infrastructure in different countries. And here in Korea, we have also one case study that I will show you later. So first of all, our company, we are a global company with more than 45,000 employees all around the world. But our technology, specifically on the transmission system, is originated in Sweden. From the time that it was ASEA, 1853, and then 1883, sorry. And then we developed the technology for transformers, for the transmission systems, and then very gladly we installed the first high voltage direct current transmission system between Gotland in Sweden to the mainland in 1954. And that's basically the starting point of the whole journey. So later on, we merged with BBC and made another company, ABB. And then later, Hitachi company purchased us back in 2020. And we are fully today, the shares of the company is basically owned by Hitachi. But all of the manufacturing lines, the resources, as I mentioned before, we are all remained in Sweden, and the technology developed and originated in Sweden and is still maintained there. And that's why we are here today. The energy sector, actually we are supporting the whole value chain from the generation side to the transmission and then to the distribution. So this is the whole value chain of the energy. You generate the power somewhere, you need to use it somewhere else, then you need to transmit it. More specifically, if I fast forward, more specifically, I would like to highlight a technology that we call it advanced technology, which is quite different with the conventional AC system, which is a DC system. So the generation of the electricity is usually based on the rotation, a rotation of the turbine, which is rotating the generator. So since this is based of the rotation, then the output of this generator is AC current, is alternating. And alternating, if you remember the elementary school, the physics, it goes to the positive and negative. But that's not something that we really need all the time. So what we do, we change the AC system to a DC system, which looks like a battery, and then you can transmit the power to very long distance, really efficient, low losses, very controllable system, and much smaller footprint. It doesn't really matter what is the generation side, if it's wind, hydro, nuclear, whatever, still you can build a station in one end and then change this alternating current to the direct current and then send it and then reverse it back. It has a really lower environmental impact. I would say for the underground, like a minus 30%, you can easily feel it, and then for the submarine, like minus 50%. Since we have still few minutes left, I would like to show you the originated, part of this HVDC technology in Gotland. These are some videos, some scenes, 1954, that will launch the world's first HVDC system. And then later, also we installed the first voltage source converter in Hälsjön in Sweden. And happily, we commissioned the first voltage source converter in Korea just December last year, 2024. And that's basically one of the case studies that I will show tomorrow in more detail. But then today, this HVDC technology is almost everywhere. And the main benefit, I can easily tell you, the HVDC system is working like a firewall. So on top of the resilience, I personally don't want to wait until something happens and then I show that I'm resilient or not. What I would like to be, I would like to be proactive. And then this HVDC system is proactive and working like a firewall in the electrical grid. So now you can see almost, this looks really mess, but you see almost all of the countries in north part of Europe, they are interconnected. We have a cable connecting Norway to UK, Norway to Germany. And this is a really great example how we try to make the whole electrical grid in the continent of Europe more stable, more flexible, and more resilient. For the Jeju project, as our Mr. Ambassador just mentioned, we started 2019 with a contract with KEPCO, and then we, in parallel to KEPCO, together we built the system, and then we commissioned last year, 24. This is one site, the station in Jeju Island. So this is that converter station that I mentioned before, converting the AC to DC. And then there is a cable connection to the top right of the corner of this slide, the HVDC cable connecting to Wondo station, which is located in mainland of Korea. And this is the same converter station that is connected to the AC grid in mainland. So this is the interconnection, which is bidirectional. Depends on the electricity flow. You can just send the power or receive the power. And I would like to also mention a few words on the innovation and how Sweden is acting in innovation ecosystem. This technology, as I mentioned, it's developed in Sweden back 1 century ago, but still we have kept our innovative technology in the cutting edge on the top of the other competitors, I would say. And still, there are not many countries who has this technology. How? Really, really great collaboration between industries as the performers for the R&D and funding and policy supports in Sweden and the general policies which are set by the government. So these are like a few things that you need to consider. It is not only the industries who can drive these things. We need the support from every sectors, the government, which sets the policies, the industries who are the doers. We need the support from the academia, who are basically the supports for the technology development. And then also we need the support from the society, who are the main users of all of our efforts. And the final words, I would say, the transition to sustainable energy requires not only localized efforts, but also global cooperation. And that's something that I really would like to emphasize. We cannot rely only on one country. We need the technology which is developed actually in a global sector. And this is also coming to the supply chain. Then the last word, I would say that we are ready here by combining the international expertise with the local resources here in Korea to develop the energy transition in this beautiful land. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Now I will ask Jacqueline Burton from Norway.
It's on. Yeah, so I'm here to talk a little bit more about the, ooh, why did it go? Did you click it again? about the softer side of things. So I'm president of WISTA Norway. WISTA is the Women's International Shipping and Trading Association. It's a global association, but I represent the Norwegian part of it, which we'll get into a little bit. And I wanted to talk about the maritime industry and future resilience and why inclusion is really infrastructure in being able to have a resilient industry. And this goes for many industries, but maritime in particular. So talent is normally distributed. I think we can agree on that. Among people, all people, you have an equal distribution of talent along a normal distribution. So you have some people that have a lot of talent and a lot of capacity in some fields or in some specialities, and you have some people that have less, and you have in the middle quite a lot. But opportunity is not necessarily equally and normally distributed. The maritime industry takes a swath of talent, but of that talent, they only take 20% women. So that leaves a huge missing gap of potential to be able to contribute to the industry and to be able to contribute to that industry being resilient and flexible, because they're only taking a certain swath of the industry. And the industry overall is quite diverse in a way. I'm happy to be back in Korea. I came here, I've been working in the maritime industry for more than 20 years, and I came here to get new vessels out of Okpo at the SME. So we were picking up new LNG tankers and taking them out. And more often than not, I was the only woman on board. And more often than not, I was an oddity in the shipyard to come and pick up a brand new LNG tanker. There were not people like me 20 years ago when I started out. And I've been happy to come back to Korea many times, including over in Incheon, just to do LNG operations here. So I'm very happy to be back, and I'm happy to be here also representing inclusion coming from Norway, because I'm not Norwegian. I've been living in Norway the last 7 years, but I'm originally from the US, and I run actually 2 different associations in Norway, and that's kind of a testament to the inclusion that is happening there. There's a problem here. So there was a survey done with Lego, trying to see, okay, what are people aspiring to be with youth? And there's a problem here for society if youth are 3 times more likely to want to become YouTubers than to want to go into different STEM fields or to become astronauts. There's an aspiration gap here that is problematic for the future of heavy industry. Because even if you have a lot of automation and autonomy, which in my day job at Kongsberg Maritime, I work on the human factors related to the design of socio-technical systems for the operation of vessels, including autonomous ones. If they're not aspiring to solve the world's greatest challenges and participate in industries like maritime that deliver 90% of everything and provide resilience to much of the world, whether it's delivering raw materials that are needed, delivering food supplies, delivering clothing. Most things are not manufactured completely from materials that are local. And 90% of everything is transported on board vessels. So how do we address this aspiration gap? Not just the gap that we had with the participation of women, but the participation of youth in the long term will hurt a lot of us. So how do we go about building better socio-technical systems through inclusion? So everyone talks about socioeconomics, but not necessarily social technical systems. So this is a piece of technology. This is a piece of technology. How people work with it and how they socialize with it, how you socialize with your phone, with the piece of technology itself, as well as the human networks that you use to do your work. And if you're looking at a really complex system like a vessel or an offshore rig, that system is not separate from the people who operate it. So you have to think about how big systems are being used, and then you need to think about how to include people in making that interaction resilient. And part of that is looking at, the inclusion of women and how they're going to act differently with systems and how systems are going to need to support them differently. And some of those inclusion measures are actually good for men as well. Not all men are tall, and women are not small men. And there's a lot of design issues that haven't yet been addressed or even thought about. And I think we should all aspire to build better when we're working. So a little bit more about WISTA Norway. WISTA Norway has been around for 37 years. It has more than 500 members, and it's one of the 62 international WISTA associations around the world. Each chapter is its own national association. So I run the association for Norway. WISTA International has about 6,000 members now, and in the 37-year history and the 50-year history of WISTA International, the numbers really haven't changed for women's inclusion in the industry. There's still around 20% total, and there's still about 1% to 2% at sea. Why hasn't it changed? Well, if you have only the women talking about the problem about how women are not included, it kind of defeats the purpose and ability to create change. So in 2018, WISTA Norway was one of the first national associations to accept male members. So right now, it used to be a bit higher. We used to be almost 11%, and now we're at 8% because we had so many new members joining. But we have male members that are full with voting rights in the association, and we have male board members. Because if we want to be included, we have to be inclusive to the perspectives of men in the industry. And a lot of the issues that women faces are almost invisible to men. And if we're not including them in the discussion and creating good collaborations long term, we will not be able to drive change. So in order to do that, we actually started a campaign a few years ago in 2021 called 40 by 30. And that was to encourage companies to sign a pledge that they would strive towards having 40% female leaders in leading positions by 2030. Right now we have 38 companies that are signatories, and we run workshops with them and we collaborate with them in order to help figure out why this hasn't changed and how we can go about changing it. We also have collaborations with the Norwegian government. We have helped them launch the gender equality strategy for the maritime industry, and we have a collaboration agreement with them towards gender equality in the maritime industry. And I think that inclusion and equity are really the infrastructure for resilience. And that's something that people don't really talk about when they're talking about resilience. They're not talking about how actually the social infrastructure that we create, that is constructed by all of us, has to be set up for resilience through inclusion and equity. Because you need to be able to utilize all of the talent that you have in the global pool and have that talent be supported. And then I want to say a little bit, because WISTA is a volunteer organization. So all the work that I do there, I'm not paid for it. We do a great job for all of our members, but Kongsberg is where I work. That's my day job. And we work on protecting people and planet. And we're looking at how we can really create resilient social technical systems to make maritime operations safer. And yeah, that's my presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Jacqueline. Next panelist is Ichun from Korea. I was informed he will speak in Korean, so if anyone you need translations, you can pick up provided translator. Go ahead.
우선 예전 직장이었던 SK에너지에서 상사로 오셨던 김유석 대표님을 앞에 두고 얘기를 하려다 보니까 제 마음속 그 회복력 속도가 떨어지는 것 같습니다. 이 점 양해해 주시기 바랍니다. 저는 한정된 시간 내에 정확한 내용을 좀 다 전달드리기 위해서 준비해온 카드를 읽으면서 좀 PT를 하도록 하겠습니다. 양해해 주시기 바랍니다. 저희도 기업 얘기입니다. SK그룹은 사회적 기업 생태계 활성화를 통해 사회문제 해결을 지향하고 있습니다. SK프로보노는 SK그룹 구성원이 사회적 기업을 대상으로 다양한 경영 자문을 하는 대표적인 자원봉사 프로그램으로 2024년 기준 구성원 3,000명이 참여하는 국내 최대 재능기부 프로그램으로 성장하였습니다. 그 이야기를 오늘 여러분들께 말씀드립니다. 경기도 수원에 산미 제빵소라고 하는 사회적 기업 빵집이 있습니다. SK 멤버사인 워커힐 호텔 셰프들이 재능 기부를 통해 제품의 레시피가 개선이 되었고 국내 최대 사회적 가치 페스타에 홍보되어 아직은 작지만 이제 어느덧 국내 최고의 빵집인 대전 성심당을 꿈꿀 수 있게 되었습니다. SK프로보노는 사회적 가치만 창출하는 것을 넘어서 우리 SK 멤버사 경영에도 도움이 되고 있습니다. 이타적 인재를 양성하고 나아가 이해관계자의 행복을 추구하는 SKMS 경영 철학에 맞는 프로그램입니다. 참고로 SKMS는 SK그룹의 경영관리 체계입니다. 구체적 사례를 뒤에서 하나하나 말씀을 드리겠습니다. 처음부터 활성화되지는 못했습니다. 그리고 지금까지 성장해온 과정에서 많은 어려움이 있었습니다. SK프로보노는 2009년도에 출범하였었으나 이후 10여 년 동안은 연평균 200여 명의 구성원만 참여할 정도로 활성화되지 못했습니다. 저희가 생각했던 그 이유는 우선 프로보노에 대한 구성원의 낮은 인식, 그 다음에 두 번째로 재능 기부에 대한 구성원의 자신감 문제를 생각했고요. 마지막으로 업무 시간이 줄어드는 것에 대한 회사 경영층의 우려가 많았던 것으로 저희는 판단하고 있습니다. 2019년 제가 근무하고 있는 행복나래가 사업을 이관받은 이후 활성화를 추구했었으나 바로 발생한 코로나로 인해 사업 중단 위기를 외려 맞았습니다. 그런데 생존 위기에 봉착한 사회적 기업의 자문 니즈는 외려 더욱 높아만 갔습니다. 그러나 위기를 기회 삼아 구성원 참여를 늘리면서 사회적 기업의 생존과 성장에 실질적인 도움이 되는 프로그램으로 변화를 시켰고 그 내용을 하나하나 다음 페이지에서 한번 설명을 드리겠습니다. 우선 MZ세대 트렌드에 맞지 않는 일률적인 자문 방식을 다양화시켰습니다. 일회성 문제 해결 중심이 아니라 일정 기간 집중적으로 자문이 필요한 경우에는 각 멤버사의 프로젝트 자문 그룹을 런칭시켜 운영하였습니다. 그리고 대면 중심의 자문에서 비대면 중심의 자문으로 전환을 하였고요. 그래서 현재는 대면과 비대면의 비중은 2대8 수준입니다. 두 번째는 사회적 기업들의 니즈에 맞게 자문 분야가 매년 개편되고 있다는 점입니다. 우리 SK그룹에는 약 10만 명이 넘는 구성원들이 있고 다양한 업무 경험을 통해 그들이 갖고 있는 역량과 재능은 매우 다양합니다. 사회적 기업 대표들이 니즈에 따라 수요가 없는 분야는 폐지가 되고 니즈가 높은 분야는 새롭게 만들어지고 있고요. 올해 2025년 현재 22개 분야에서 자문이 이루어지고 있습니다. 세 번째 원인인데요. 가장 중요한 것 같습니다. 구성원들의 참여 동의를 북돋아냈습니다. 대부분의 대기업들이 구성원들의 사회공헌 활동에 있어서 일정 시간을 강제로 할당하여 진행하는 경우가 한국에는 많았었습니다. 그러나 이런 방식은 진정성이 결여되게 되고 외려 구성원의 반발심을 갖게 된다고 저희는 생각을 했습니다. 그래서 저희는 속도는 늦지만 구성원의 자긍심을 고취하는 다양한 방법을 고민하여 시행하게 되었고 어느덧 자리를 잡아가고 있습니다. 대표적으로 사진에 보시듯이 매년 최고의 프로보노들을 선정하여 배지를 수여하고 명예전당에 이름을 올리고 있습니다. 이 페이지에서는 앞에서 말씀드렸던 프로젝트 자문그룹, 현재 SK그룹 22개 멤버사의 22개 그룹이 현재 전략적 자문 활동을 하고 있습니다. 11페이지. 우리가 SK 프로보노가 미치고 있는 영향력은 아래와 같습니다. 일단 멤버사를 대상으로는 각 사의 업 특성에 맞는 사회적 가치를 창출하는 데 저희가 도움을 주고 있습니다. 앞서 사례로 말씀드렸던 워커이 호텔은 최고 셰프들이 자문을 수행하고 있고 보건안전 경호에 전문성이 있는 SK 쉴더스 구성원들도 전문성을 살려 자문을 하고 있습니다. 또한 멤버사의 비즈니스 성장에도 기여를 하고 있습니다. 많은 우리 SK 멤버사들이 각 지역에 소재하고 사업을 하고 있어서 해당 지역의 사회 문제 해결 사업을 추진할 때 저희 SK 프로보노가 참여하고 있습니다. 구성원들에게도 구성원의 직무 역량 향상에도 많이 도움을 주고 있는데요. 실제로 각 SK 멤버사에서 구성원들의 OJT의 프로보노 활동을 적극적으로 활용을 하고 있습니다. 마지막으로 우리 사회에 대기업이 할 수 있는 사회공헌 방법론을 제시한 데 의의가 있다고 생각합니다. 그간의 양적 질적 성과를 간단하게 말씀을 드리도록 하겠습니다. 앞서 말씀드렸던 노력으로 인해서 비약적인 성장을 이루었고 24년 기준으로 35개 멤버사 2,934명이 구성원의 4명이 재능 기부에 참여하였고 506개 사회적 기업계 자문을 해드렸습니다. 그간의 성과를 정부에서 인정을 받아서 표창도 받은 바 있습니다. 마지막으로 SK그룹 구성원 중에 누구보다도 열심히 진정성 있게 참여하고 있는 구성원들을 몇 분 소개를 해드리겠습니다. 먼저 SK 하이닉스 청주 공장에 양성현 프로보너라는 소방안전 전문가가 있습니다. 청주 지역 내 사회적 기업을 대상으로 소방안전 자문을 해오고 있으며 이를 이천 공장으로 전파하는 데 주도적인 역할을 하였고 또 하이닉스를 벗어나 SK 이노베이션이라는 다른 계열사의 확산에도 주도적인 역할을 하였습니다. 다음은 SK 브로드밴드라는 계열사의 정지영 프로보노인데요. 이분은 공공사업 유치를 위한 기획하고 프레젠테이션 전문가입니다. 10년간 개인형 자문을 하다가 이 노하우를 그룹 내 전체를 확산시키고자 사업 제안서 특화 교육 프로그램을 만들어 확산시켰습니다. 마지막으로 SK 이노베이션의 홍하나 프로보너인데요. SK 이노베이션은 구성원은 10,000명 가까이 되었으나 그동안 프로보너 활동이 거의 없었던 멤버사였습니다. 근데 여기에 SK 이노베이션 프로보너 활동이 확산되는데 주도적인 역할을 했던 실무자입니다. 마지막 페이지입니다. 저희 프로보노가 꿈꾸는 미래입니다. 이 SK 프로보노는 우리 그룹 구성원의 자원봉사 프로그램을 넘어서 대한민국 재능기부 자원봉사의 플랫폼 역할을 통해 외부로 확산을 시키고자 합니다. 물론 수혜 대상도 사회적 기업뿐만이 아니고 다양한 민간 기업에게도 확산시키려고 노력하고 있습니다. 이상입니다.
Thank you very much. As you see, that we have 5 different experts from 5 different their own field. So while they're talking, sharing their view, I was thinking we are like the mini rainbow with 5 different colors. But we are gathered one single theme, like how resilience related to innovation. Perhaps in your daily exercise, you have never thought how resilience has to do with your business. but I challenge you. So we like to go deeper because I was told from people staff we are supposed to finish by 4:40, so we have at least 13 minutes of the very in-depth discussion. So I like to pose one common question to all of you. That is, from the perspective of your expertise, how you to define resilience in your field of expertise, and how do you think it is so critical to promoting innovations or innovative mindset in your field of expertise? We have people from health, defense and security, and energy, and maritime, and social enterprise. So, there's no pecking order. So anyone who would like to volunteer first, pro bono first?
I can start, I guess. So for the maritime industry, it depends on the part of the industry that you talk about resilience. There's a really interesting definition that we have in the cruise sector of the maritime industry, and there's a concept called safe return to ports. And that means that the vessel itself needs to be resilient enough to recover any catastrophic failure and have a duplicity of systems in order to recover the vessel and be able to return safely to port. And those rules were quite new. I think it was introduced in 2012, and it's only now coming into force. And it raised a lot of interesting questions about the design of the vessel and what you consider to be an essential system or a non-essential system. And there was a lot of regulatory backing in that because those are actually international rules. And so when you're looking at resilience, I think there's a lot about recovery in that and being able to recover systems and be able to recover both from the talent pool. If you lack talent and you get someone who's ill that you've been depending on, you're not resilient if you haven't spread the knowledge well, and you can't recover systems well, I think.
Thank you. Amanda or Vera?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can continue. So in the energy area, again, it depends which part of the electrical grid you are basically focusing. If you focus on the frequency level, as I said, like operation of the AC, the alternating current going up and down, or the flickers that you see in the lamps even here, it's in the range of the even milliseconds. So the 50 hertz frequency cannot even handle 50.2. Then the whole system of the land will collapse. So it depends how the or which part of the electrical grid you are considering. But in general, if you look at the recent event that happened just a few weeks ago in Europe, in Spain, the big outage of the electricity and how it impacted the whole society. Like you could see really interesting stories. People, they didn't have any access to their phones. Okay, the phone is connected to antenna in this area, but the antenna doesn't have any power supply. So you see, it brings a lot of headache. And then from that perspective, you can see how the Spanish grid system is resilient and how fast they can recover. There are connections to neighboring lands, like to France, like a Spain-France connection through the HVDC. And then you can see how the spread of this kind of problem or outage was kind of stopped at the borders, just thanks to the technology that I was mentioning, like HVDC technology. So that's in the energy level. But when it comes to innovation, I would say the resilience in our R&D parts, I would say that's also really, really interesting, because we need to customize the technology whenever we enter new areas. In Korea, we need to customize our technology for Korean grid. In China, we should do the same thing for it. So it requires quite a strong R&D activities in the backside. So you cannot really bring one technology in hand and just sell it all around the world. You need to have the continuous improvement, the continuous supports, and the continuous innovative thinking. Otherwise, your technology will be just sold once. So again, depends which area you are looking at. It's different.
Thank you. Vera, you want to take?
I'm not going to define resilience anymore, but I think I like bouncing back personally, that coming back from the crisis. And it doesn't have to be that you have to bounce back to the exact way things were. It can be different, but it can still be acceptable to you. And on innovations, I think the cooperation between the public and the private sector is something that's really essential in today's world. If you think about the supply chains, if you think about our critical infrastructure, it's private actors that are taking care of electricity, communications, grid, everything. So I think cooperation and also voluntary cooperation and that kind of innovation is very important.
Thank you. Anna? Yeah.
Yeah, so I think when I'm thinking about it, I think there is resilience both in what we choose to do and in how we do it. And with what is kind of what are the challenges that we should address in the future, globally and also nationally. And also, what are the end users, whoever they are, what are they ready to actually take up? So I think it's really important also to bring in both, what are the key challenges and what are the end users actually going to accept in the end. So I think to have a very close connection all the time and to have many possibilities all the time for solutions, as I mentioned before. And then on the how side, I think this is how we perform, for example, research or innovation on collaboration with companies. I think there we also need to build in the resilience so that we are able to very quickly transform or adjust or rebounds, and I think it's something that I personally have not been so aware of. But I think we are doing certain things, but we can certainly improve a lot.
Thank you. 준섭?
네, 저는 회복력을 정의를 하면은 우리 사회에서 지속적으로 사회적 가치가 창출되는 능력이 아닐까라고 생각이 되고요. 이 창출하는 주체는 무엇보다 기업이라고 생각합니다. 왜 그러냐면은 공공이나 정부 입장에서는 이거를 효율적으로 창출하지 못할 것 같습니다. 왜 기업이냐면 기업은 사업을 통해서 비즈니스를 통해서 창출하기 때문에 지속 가능하다는 것입니다. 그래서 저희는 기업을 보고 있는 거고요. 이 말씀은 사실은 저의 생각이 아니고 저희 SK그룹 최태원 회장이 사회적 기업 방식으로 우리는 사회공헌을 하게 된 가장 큰 원인이 사회적 기업은 아까 말씀드린 대로 사회적 가치와 경제적 가치 두 마리 토끼를 쫓는 주체이기 때문에 지속 가능하게 아주 효율적 방식으로 사회 문제를 해결하는 것이 주체이기 때문입니다.
Thank you. I'd like to make one more round because we still have time. This is getting more difficult. I think some of you have been to Korea for the first time, or some of you have been to a couple of times. So the question is as follows, because we try to create some synergy because we have experts from Nordic countries and we have Korean participants. This is called Korea+Nordic Innovations Day. So question to you is, suppose you are promoted to CEO of your organizations, okay? So your companies and your organizations, so you become all of a sudden the president of Finland, okay? And you become CEO of your company, and so on and so forth. So from Korean counterpart, when it comes to check whether or not Korean counterpart is really, effective enough to be resilient in relation to innovations, which aspect you will check? If you have picked one observation from your counterpart to really test is my Korean counterpart is effectively resilient, what aspect you will seek for?
어떤 요소, 회복력 있는 요소다. 이거를 되게 브로드한 질문을 주셔가지고 지금 실행하고 있는 게 뭐냐면은 그 사회적 기업이 만들어내는 사회적 가치를 정량화해서 측정을 해야 된다는 것입니다. 그렇지 않고서는 절대로 이 기업이 얼마나 사회적 가치를 내는지 그거를 볼 수가 없습니다. 그래서 화폐 가치로 측정하는 게 중요한 것 같고요. 대한민국에는 이제 SK가 시작을 했는데 주요 뭐 신한이라든가 다른 대기업들도 이 활동에 지금 조금씩 움직이고 있습니다. 아마 어려운 일이긴 하지만 그게 제일 중요하지 않을까 생각이 됩니다.
Maybe I can just very briefly, since time is running out. I think if it's a bigger company I was looking at, I would ask, how are they doing their risk management? I would look into that. What are the risks that they have already identified, and what systems do they have in place? Of course, being aware that sometimes it's unpredictable, but I think at least it shows some preparedness. And then I would also ask for what are the challenges you have been facing before, and how did you solve those, and how did they actually navigate? These are some of the things I would look at.
I would maybe ask them, do you know who to call in a crisis?
Wonderful, yes. Yeah. Aman?
Yes, so after being in Korea for almost 3 years and in this region for almost 8 years, I would say I will ask about the challenges that I had faced so far, and thus their flexibility to the changes. The Korean companies, even in the government level, what we face as a European company is like stocking on some kind of previous methods and not easy to change. So the flexibility when it comes to what is the meaning of resilience? You need to be flexible in certain cases, and especially when it comes to doing the business. The flexibility, how fast they can adopt to the new norms. That's, I think, something that it can be a good measurement, and also something that we could check.
Yeah, but I'm not, nationalistic. But when it comes to adapting to new situations, using Korean 빨리빨리, I think second to none.
I think I could probably agree with that. For WISTA, the president of WISTA Korea will be joining us on Thursday in that panel discussion. So I'm sure that we'll talk about it from the gender standpoint. But from the standpoint of Kongsberg Maritime, we've had a long collaboration with Korea. We have offices here in Korea. It's one of the countries where we have quite close ties in the development of ship technology as well as the delivery of ship technology. I think for improving kind of the collaboration for resilience, I think most of the time a lot of the feedback we don't get is the negative feedback, and that's actually the most useful feedback. And I think that chasing quantification over qualitative data is really a detriment in some ways, because you don't get the problems before they can be quantified, and it would be easier to address them with richer data. Why is that your experience, and how can we collaborate to improve it? If we don't hear that there's a problem, we can't help fix it, and that kind of goes both ways in collaboration. And I think that that's also really important in the national ties, and a really great reason to be here in Korea, because I get to meet with our team here and also work on that collaboration more.
Thank you very much. But the EFS Korean, the MG generations, they will love to say anything negative about companies. So they become very, I think our time is up. We're starting with my first visit to Stockholm, June 1993. I spent more than 32 years, looking into Nordic region. It has become my inspiration to make more cohesive, more sustainable, and more resilient society in my intellectual quest. So in that regard, I think this discussion has been really inspiring to me as well. And I wish we had time to go to the audience to pick up some questions, but time is limited. But I heard there's some network time, so we can utilize that time. So thank you very much for all these 5 wonderful panelists. Let's give a warm round of applause. Thank you.